Hey everybody, welcome to the Western Roundup. I actually changed a few things around after hearing upon the sad news of the death of Robert Duvall, who is in one of the movies that I was going to review in this episode. So that's just kind of the way it worked out, but the video is going to kind of start off already in progress, and that's because I took a few things out and added a few things. Rest in peace to the great Robert Duvall.
All right, now we're going to come to the short story part of the show and review a Louis L'Amour story. I've got 2 volumes of the collected short stories of Louis L'Amour, Volume 7 and Volume 3. And I got these from a Barnes & Nobles that was going out of business in Philadelphia, so I got them on sale. I would have got more if they had more. But, he was quite prolific, as many people know. A lot of the titles in here jump out at me as having been made into films, and I'm almost surprised that the story I'm going to review today, Riding for the Brand, hasn't been. Maybe it has. I hope it has, because I'd like to check it out. I think you can expand it into a feature length. You can make this into a 90-minute movie or a 60-minute TV episode. I almost wonder why they never, unless I'm wrong, maybe there is such a show, but why we never got a Western show, which was like an anthology show of Louis L'Amour stories, a different story every week. There was plenty of material, for sure. Anyway, this was excellent. This basically follows the character of Jed Asbury, who comes across a wagon that has been robbed and attacked in the beginning, and he starts going through the things and taking some items, and then you learn that he's doing this out of necessity. He's not really a thief, but he needs the clothes, for example, because he's buck naked. Why is he buck naked? Because he came across some Comanches and they decided to strip him down and chase him for fun, kind of like the plot of The Naked Prey with Cornel Wilde. And he was a little bit more athletic and clever than they thought, so he kind of got away, and he's a little bit worse for wear. His feet are banged up a little bit, but he takes some clothes, he takes some money, and he finds a letter which is basically promising a ranch to a guy named Michael. And in the letter they say, you got to watch out for this other guy. He's going to give you a problem, but the ranch is yours. So he decides to impersonate that person. And this is like, I've seen many teleplays for Westerns that have been kind of similar. Even Kung Fu had when Kwai Chang Caine eventually found his half-brother Daniel Caine, there were still many episodes to go. So it was like, is that the real Daniel Caine? I've seen similar storylines in many Westerns. This is really well done, though. This guy, Jed, he's been around the world. He's still relatively young, but he's been on a ship before. He's been to Brazil. He's been on the East Coast. He took boxing lessons. He's done all kinds of things. He can work cattle. He can ride horses. He got into a few gunfights that he did not want to get into and buried a couple people. Took a bullet, but he survived, and he's got some enemies out there. And some of them that he mentions casually, that are mentioned casually in the beginning of the story, come back, which was kind of cool. So he basically just comes in and introduces himself as Michael, and there's a woman that is running the ranch, and she has an older assistant, and they hit it off. There's also an old guy with a wooden leg who spent some time at sea who recognizes right away that this guy doesn't really seem like the way that Michael was described. Michael was described as being kind of bookish, and this Jed character, even though he does, they try to kind of ask him about some books, and he comes up with some pretty good answers. He has read some books. He mentions Plutarch, and that kind of shuts them up. This guy recognizes that he uses certain terminology, and like the way that he ties knots kind of indicates this guy has been at sea, and the Michael character hasn't. Meanwhile, the guy who thought the ranch was going to be his kind of moves in and starts to press him, and he's got some henchmen, and there's a connection. He's got a connection to the wagon that was attacked in the beginning, which had been blamed on Indians. I won't really say anymore. Other than that, it's just a really good story. Very good ending. Couple twists at the end. It seemed really good. Great dialogue, too. These are really finely edged characters. The confrontations that he gets into, he really tries to not shoot it out with people if it can be avoided, and he punches punches it out with a neighbor who he's also been warned about, that kind of thinks that his cows can just wander over to this ranch that he's now sort of in charge of and do what they will. So he has a confrontation with him, but he starts to gain the respect of anybody that's around him. It's really good. Yeah, definitely. If you haven't read any Louis L'Amour short stories, I highly recommend checking some out and riding for the brand. At one point, somebody says something like, "Hey, this guy, can we trust this guy, Michael?" Or the guy that they think is Michael. And someone else says, "Yeah, he's riding for the brand now." So in other words, he's on our side. But, yeah, really good story. Highly recommend it. I can't wait to. I'm already on the next one, but I'm really trying to read more for sure, definitely. So come back again for some more Western short story reviews. Okay, next I'd like to show off some recent physical media additions to the collection that I've picked up. Typically, I show off my physical media pickups on Fridays under videos called Physical Media Fridays, if you've never seen any of those. Sometimes I have thematic Fridays like all Kung Fu or all Westerns. I've done quite a few of those. Sometimes I just mix it all up. And typically, that's where all my physical media pickup videos are. But I decided to incorporate some of that into Western Wednesdays. And before I do that, considering that one of them is a Sam Peckinpah film, I just wanted to mention it last night. I caught a great show on the Trash Picture Show where Marty from the Trash Picture Show and Joey Nomad were talking about Sam Peckinpah's classic, The Wild Bunch. So go back and check that out. I missed the first 10 minutes, but I just went back and watched it because I could talk about The Wild Bunch all day. So check that out. That was a really good show. And speaking of Peckinpah, I recently picked up Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia with Warren Oates, which they talked about a little bit last night on the show too. This is a pretty grim one. And they also touched on Western remakes. What are your thoughts about Western remakes in general? Let me know in the comments below. They were basically saying, please don't remake The Wild Bunch. I agreed with them. And then I pointed out that homages are okay. Like Extreme Prejudice was definitely an homage to The Wild Bunch. The Long Riders had some scenes which were homages to Peckinpah's style with Walter Hill's little twist. So that's fine. I remember seeing a documentary about Peckinpah where Elvis Mitchell, the film critic, said that this probably will not be remade because you could call this Bring Me the Tormented Soul of Sam Peckinpah. It's not a pleasant film. And Warren Oates is actually kind of imitating Peckinpah. And apparently everybody on set knew that but Peckinpah, which is pretty fascinating to watch. So a grim one, but a good one. And then another one I picked up recently, probably one of the comedic spaghetti westerns, I'm guessing, directed by E.B. Klucher. I forget. I believe he's Italian, so I don't know what his actual name is. Man of the East. Man of the East with Terence Hill. And this was a Kino Lorber. So it's going to be pretty bare bones as far as the release goes. 125 minutes. Oh, wow. For a comedy one? If it is a comedy one, is it? Oh, it's Enzo Barboni. That's his real name. He directed The Unholy Four. They Call Me Trinity, and Trinity is Still My Name. And some Eurocrime, like Crime Busters. Comes a classic Western comedy starring screen icon Terence Hill. Okay, it is a comedy. Well, wow. Comedy that's over 2 hours long. Well, we'll see. I'm going to give it a shot. Well, there you go, guys. 2 recent pickups. And now let's continue on with the show. All right, and next I'd like to review a few films that I've seen on streaming recently. The first one being Gun Fever from 1958, an hour and 23 minutes long, a very low-budget film, very interesting film, an atmospheric film. That's the thing that really jumped out at me was the atmosphere of it. This was directed by Mark Stevens. Stars Mark Stevens and John Lupton as 2 guys who want to take down a renegade outlaw named Trench, who's played by Aaron Saxon. And one of the guys has a past relationship with Trench that he keeps from his partner, and that sort of will reveal itself by the end of the film.
Now, this film is interesting because right away I spotted two guys that I know from Mystery Science Theater and little else. One of them is Dean Fredericks, who I have seen actually in a few Westerns recently. But, I only knew him from the Phantom Planet episode of the old school Mystery Science Theater, which is a funny episode.
No sense, Tim.
I like potatoes.
That wasn't really a question. I know you can't answer.
We'll keep talking and talking.
I just wanted you to know how I feel. Strange world.
Anyway, let's get busy.
You don't need that.
Yes, I don't.
His line delivery in that is a little stilted. I think the whole movie's like that. At one point, one of the robots said a line, and one of the robots was like, Henry Fonda, that's who, because he almost sounded like he was doing a Henry Fonda. But I have seen him in a few other Westerns recently, and he's pretty good, and he's actually good in this. He plays a character named Charlie, who's in it briefly. Both the villain in this and our heroes do have some people that they will link up with, and not all of them will make it even halfway through the film. So, for example, when the villain, who's played by Aaron Saxon, who I know from another Mystery Science Theater episode, we'll get to that in a second, when he loses a henchman, he just gets another one. And he's very good at that, always having people around him that he can manipulate and use almost like as a shield. He basically uses a Native American tribe to do his dirty work. He sort of, manipulates them and manipulates whoever he's with to really do some horrible things. We're talking just like basically home invasions. I mean, if he was a modern day criminal, he'd be conducting home invasions, just stealing and killing. I mean, he's that evil. I know him from the Mystery Science Theater episode, The Undead, which is a Roger Corman movie where he played Gobbo the Jailer.
Hour of death. What? Parallel universe. Yeah. Brilliant scene making here. Oh, that can't smell good. They made the huge quarry stone wall shake.
And his line delivery in that was a little goofy. I mean, I have to say. He also played a character named Gort in another Roger Corman film, The Raven, and he did a lot of uncredited roles and, some speaking roles as well. If you look on IMDb, there's not even a picture of him. Kind of a short, stout guy. He was a former professional wrestler named Lord Spear. But he's really good. He's just pure evil, pretty much, in this film. And the film opens up with the credits sort of like blowing in the wind, and all you hear is like howling wind. And the 70-80% of this movie is nothing but howling wind in the background. Like the traditional sort of wind sound in the back, and then also like a whistling sound layered on top of that. And the opening credits come on and they blow away, and it just sets up. It almost feels almost like a horror Western, but it really doesn't go into that direction. But it is very atmospheric. I really got into it right from the beginning. And I was just really surprised at how ruthless the villain was and how many characters are in this. There's a henchman named Amigo, played by Larry Storch. You guys know Larry Storch from F Troop. Was not Mexican. Some people might have a problem with that. He tried, and I think he actually did a pretty good job. And you have some other characters. There's a character named Tanana, played by Margaret Hingert, who is kind of sympathetic to our heroes, but also kind of fearful of this villain. And the villain does go through a few henchmen as well. As I mentioned, the two Native American chiefs that he deals with are played by Iron Eyes Cody and Eddie Little Sky. So if you know the history of those guys, you know that the producers may have thought in this case they had two authentic Native actors, but in fact they only had one. I'm not much more to say about it. Like it's just kind of an interesting film. I mean, I really did. It did keep my attention the whole film, and I thought it was very atmospheric and a little bit different. The next one is Lawman, starring Burt Lancaster. Now, this is from 1971, an hour and 39 minutes, and I think this would fall under the category of like a revisionist Western. The Westerns of the late 60s and early 70s tried to be a little more realistic and a little bit more honest in the way they depicted some of the brutal events of the Old West. So this is directed by Michael Winner, actually. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Michael Winner. Yeah, and it kind of feels like that in a way, almost like you can see a little bit of Death Wish in there. A lawman from Bannock arrives in Sabbath, that's the name of the town, to arrest all the cattlemen whose wild celebration the year before resulted in the
accidental death of the old man. So this has a great cast because Lee J. Cobb owns a ranch. His ranch hands go into town and get drunk and shoot up the place. And then, he has them, take off and go sober up. But little do they know that they've accidentally shot and killed someone. So that's Burt Lancaster comes to arrest them. And Lee J. Cobb talks to the sheriff, played by the great Robert Ryan, who's very good in this. And, he offers some kind of cash settlement, which Burt Lancaster's character rejects. He wants to arrest all of them. And we're talking about a pretty good cast here. Albert Salmai, Richard Jordan, John Beck, Ralph Waite, and William Watson and his giant teeth. William Watson is like it's not someone you want to mess with. The Ralph Waite character kind of hides behind him a little bit. And also Robert Duvall. Almost kind of surprised that the role that Robert Duvall has is as small as it is. He's just one of the ranch hands. He actually gets involved in a chase in the desert with Lancaster. So the two of them go like mano a mano, chasing each other and trying to shoot each other. That's a really good scene, though. The rest of the guys are kind of dealt with more in town. And then you also have the townspeople that just kind of want this to go away. So there's a few times the townspeople try to muster up the courage to get rid of Lancaster, too. At one point, Ralph Waite's character is arrested. Oh, he shoots somebody in the back. Okay, so the sheriff, Robert Ryan, has no patience for that. He calls them back shooters. So he arrests them, and the guy he starts talking a big game. You better let me out of here. So Robert Ryan actually opens. He said, he pretty much says it's not locked. Go ahead, but I might shoot you in the back. And trust me, you don't want Burt Lancaster's character to find you. So the guy slinks back into the jail cell. He's pretty good. So Robert Ryan is a very strong sort of presence in this film. They get to a point where they think maybe they can kind of have like a settlement, like maybe Lancaster doesn't have to go all the way and either arrest or kill all of them, but they reach a point where it's going to be like no return, point of no return. And the ending is grim, very gritty. It unlike a film like Valdez is Coming, where you had more of a satisfactory conclusion. This one leaves you with a little pit in your stomach. This one was a rough one, but I did enjoy it. Probably a little too rough for a lot of people, but a solid one. And of course, everybody involved is great. Lancaster's fantastic in this, as is Lee J. Cobb, and pretty much Robert Ryan, everybody involved. So I do recommend The Lawman.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Which Robert Duvall movies are you guys going to watch in the next few days? I'm probably going to watch Open Range and maybe even Joe Kidd again this weekend coming up. All right, thanks a lot. Later.